With a rate of 30.8%, Pakistan is the country with the highest prevalence of diabetes mellitus. 33 million Pakistani adults, or 1 in 7 of the country's population, already have diabetes. This number is increasing at an alarming rate each and every year. Varying social strata have different experiences, notably in Pakistan, where the lack of easily available and reasonably priced healthcare services makes managing diabetes expensive. Many individuals in the lower classes are unaware of the difficulties and dangers that people from other social classes endure. Thus, we'd like to tell a tale in this video to explain the position of a lower class citizen. This is a story about Ali, a 22-year-old man from a lower class family. His father died when he was young, thus he had to leave his education for work to support his family. He worked as a laborer in the morning in extremely harsh environments. And during the evenings he would work as an electrician as well. The double shift barely helped him afford daily necessities. He had always wanted to go to college in order to become a lawyer. However, he could not and was stuck in routine for the rest of his life. 9 years later, he experienced intense fatigue and increased blood pressure levels. Upon visiting a doctor, he was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. This greatly affected his work as he wasn't able to concentrate and would often take days off due to illness and fatigue. One day he got to know from a relative of his mother that a few of his family members were also diagnosed with diabetes in their late 50s and 60s. This made him greatly depressed and made him wonder why he was diagnosed at such an early age. The doctor told him that due to his stress, the symptoms had developed earlier than usual. 2 years later, he had a small heart attack, and the doctor warned him about needing surgery. However, he was unable to afford the fees and thus had to endure it. Alas, he spent his final days awaiting his imminent death. He wished to live long enough to see his two sons grow up. However, he passed away, leaving his family with all his savings. Ali's story is one of the millions of tales of lower class diabetes patients. Let's move on to the entwined facts and data collected on the current state of diabetes in Pakistan. 1 out of 7 people in Pakistan have diabetes. This especially happens as people grow older, which causes their immune systems to get weaker. Some symptoms of diabetes include excessive thirst and urination, increased fatigue, as well as excessive weight loss. In order to reduce glucose levels in the blood, insulin packets are recommended. However, they are expensive and cost around 2,600 Pakistani rupees. More severe cases require coronary bypass surgery, which starts at around 200,000 Pakistani rupees. But with the average wage being around 18,000 Pakistani rupees a month, the treatment is far out of reach for over half of the population of Pakistan. As a result, many people end up dying. There are also those who live their lives without knowing about their condition due to a lack of awareness. Diabetes has also become more severe due to people not being able to afford proper food. Hence, they eat cheaper but unhealthier alternatives like fast food, which increases the chances of getting diabetes. The best way to reduce the impact of diabetes is by applying a healthier lifestyle and by staying fit. The best way to spread awareness about diabetes is through social media. The government is also urged to spread awareness through news channels or public announcements. Thank you for watching. We would now like to present to you the interview we conducted to find out more about the issue in our community.
तो शुरू करते हैं. Yeah, I'll just start with the questions. Yeah. Uh, we cannot know your name. ये सब कुछ हो गया. अब start करते हैं. What type of diabetes are you? Type 1 or type 2?
Type 2 diabetes.
Okay, can we know your age?
Yeah, I'm 20 years old and I was diagnosed at the age of 18.
Okay, okay. What led your parents to, or you to find out that you were actually diabetic?
First of all, before I was diabetic, before I was officially diagnosed with being diabetic, when I was diagnosed, doctors suspect that I've been diabetic for 3 to 4 months previously. But because I had such high sugar levels and it remained undiagnosed, I started to get blurred vision, tiredness, unintentional weight loss, things like that, which led me to go to the doctors, which then led them to diagnose me with type 2 diabetes.
Okay. Okay, so as a diabetic person, do you have to keep your glucose intake and sugar intake low?
Yes, not necessarily sugar intake, but carbohydrates because they really spike your sugar. Things like white bread, things like pasta, pizza, burger, anything that has a large amount of flour in it. Basically, that's a no-go.
Okay, okay. Other than feeling tired, do you have any other symptoms that you felt, before you were diagnosed?
Before I would have swelling in my fingers and my feet, burning in my feet, blurred vision. These three were the most, and unintentional. Like I had large amounts of weight loss.
Oh,
So
okay.
those are the main ones.
Okay, so do you often keep a check on your glucose intake, glucose level?
Yes, especially after I wake up, because that gives me a very good idea of how controlled my blood sugar is. And normally, if I've had a meal right before I sleep, then I'll normally check my sugar level then.
Okay. Okay, so what type of treatment or medication do you use for diabetes?
So when I was first diagnosed, I think after a month or so, they made me start using insulin through a syringe. It was directly on my stomach area. So, but that was very ineffective. So after 2 to 3 weeks, I really didn't see much difference, and it actually made my health worse. So after that, we switched to a purely diet-based plan. So over there, you control your carbs, and you switch to a more fat-based diet. And otherwise, there's this medicine called glucophage, which I eat whenever I've had a large, heavy meal.
Okay, so as a diabetic person, you would discourage the use of insulin.
No, not necessarily, because I have type 2 diabetes, and type 2 diabetes, it's not necessarily your pancreas that's the problem, it's your cells. They're not taking insulin anymore. So for type 1 diabetes, insulin is effective, but not that much for type 2.
Okay. Okay, so you previously mentioned that you had to make some dietary changes to help with the diabetes. Can you please explain what those changes were?
First of all, I had to cut down my intake of carbs the most, and frequent meal eating. Like I couldn't have previously, I would have 2, 3, even 4 meals a day, and then snacking in between as well. But now I don't have more than 2 meals. In very rare cases, maybe 3 meals. That's because you need like a larger opening window between your meals to prevent your sugar from spiking. And I switched to a more fat based diet. It's called a keto diet. It's where your main source of energy is fat instead of carbohydrates.
Okay. Okay, so what is a usual lunch, dinner, and breakfast for you?
I usually switch breakfast to leave a larger fasting window between my dinner and my first meal. So normally breakfast is pushed back to about 1 p.m. After which I usually have eggs with cheese, because fat is a major role. And then after 4 to 5 hours, a second meal, which could be anything from a protein with a fat on the side, usually beef with cheese, which is my go-to. And then in very rare cases, a dinner, which at most would be a coffee, but without sugar.
Okay, so after being diagnosed with diabetes, are you now consuming more water in your daily life?
No, not necessarily. Nobody really, or no one, no doctor advised me to drink more water. It's about the same, I'd say.
Okay. Has diabetes ever affected your education?
Not in a very major way, but I'd say sometimes diabetes, like when I wake up, it leaves me with a foggy mind if I've had like a large meal right before I sleep. That's really about it. I don't really see much other difference. But when I'm with friends, things like that, whenever we go out, that really, that creates a problem because I really can't have, too many carbs at once. Things like burgers, pizzas, whatever. That's off the table.
According to you, what is the hardest thing about diabetes?
The sudden diet changes, I guess. All of a sudden, you're eating all these other foods that you really never would have eaten before. All of a sudden, you're cutting out some of your favorite foods out your life, even though you would really wish to have them. That's probably the biggest problem, I'd say, or the hardest thing to change.
What advice would you give to someone who has recently been diagnosed with diabetes?
Try to make diet changes as soon as possible because that will reduce your blood sugar. That'll keep a low blood sugar much faster than anything else.
Yes, thank you so much. You were very helpful.
Yes.